All right, Bulls and Bears. It is Wednesday. It's October 20th, 2021. Someone just sent me an article here earlier today, and it's another scenario where I have underestimated how bad things really are. Now, some of you on this channel, some viewers, not very many of you, a very small percentage of you, but some of you have accused me of being over dramatic, exaggerating how bad things are, being doom and gloom, and a few other things, that make it sound like that I'm not explaining things the way that they really are. Now, there's a statistic that I've been quoting here for at least a couple years. I think I read this and discovered this maybe 2 or 3 years ago at the most. Anyways, the statistic is how big the wealth gap is, or the divide between the mega rich and the middle class and poor, the rest of us. So the mega rich and the rest of the whole population, right? So when it comes to assets and securities and stocks, I had said many times, I had put out there the statistic that was correct at the time, that the top 1% own 50% of all stocks, and the top 10% own 80% of all stocks. Well, guess what? More recent news indicates that it's much worse than that. Take a look at this. A recent article just came out a couple days ago, and thank you to the one that sent this to me, one of you lovely viewers out there. The wealthiest 10% of Americans now own a record 89% of all U.S. stocks. So the top 10%, it's no longer 80%, it's actually 89% now, almost 90%. So another case, another scenario where the statistic that I have been putting out there, the data saying that the top 10% own about 80% of all stocks, is now even worse than what I've been telling you. From this article, the wealthiest 10% of American households now own 89% of all stocks, a record high that highlights the stock market's role in increasing wealth inequality. And look at these numbers. These are pretty shocking. The top 1% gained over $6.5 trillion in corporate equities and mutual fund wealth during the pandemic, according to the latest data from the Fed. And I wonder if the chairman, Mr. Jerome Powell's in there. I'm sure he is, with his front running the money machine's decisions, if you know what I'm talking about. All right, imagine if you knew exactly what the money machine was going to do, what securities they were going to buy. How rich would you be? Well, maybe almost as rich as Mr. Powell. Now, it also says down here the bottom 90% of Americans held about 11% of stocks, and the bottom 90% added 1.2 trillion. So the entire bottom 90%, 1.2 trillion. The top 10%, 6.5 trillion. All right, so there we go. Another example of how I actually wasn't being doomish enough. And I say doomish, it's really not doomish, it's just reality. This is what it is. When you see the stock market break to all-time high after all-time high, there's going to be certain people in a much better position than the bottom 90%. And they have the inside track, if you know what I'm talking about. And also, the market makers, they can see your trades with the help of the brokers, the online brokers, E-Trade, etc. Robinhood, definitely. They see your trades. So when you take a position, and they even have algorithms that can automatically make the trade go against you, and many times push you out of the trade, because they know the percentage of your portfolio that you are putting in there, and the algorithms have it all calculated. They know the chances or the likelihood of you selling your position if the stock goes down. If somebody puts 75% of their available investment in a certain stock and the stock goes down, they're likely going to be scared out of it because most of their money is getting zapped. Whereas if somebody puts 2% of all their investment portfolio in a certain position, they're going to be very less likely. They're going to be much more less likely to sell that position. The algorithms have it all computed, and yes, they'll push a trade against you based on your investment size and the likelihood of you being scared out of the trade. That's what the market makers do. That's what the monopoly men do, and the brokers, they're in on it. Right, if you don't believe me, just go watch some videos from Timothy Sykes. He talks about day trading. I'm not into day trading. I dipped my toes into it a few years ago and learned a lot of that stuff from him. But getting up at 6:30 a.m. when the market opened here, Pacific time, was not for me. If you're dedicated, you can definitely make some money at it. But the hours and the time definitely didn't fit my lifestyle. Let's talk about what Paul Tudor Jones has to say. Inflation could be worse than feared. Biggest threat to markets and society. Right, so worse than feared. That sounds familiar, right? Things are usually even worse than what I've been telling you. But I have to disagree. Inflation and the markets. Well, if the markets were mostly Main Street or retail investors, then inflation would likely be, a threat to the markets. But it's actually not. The market is mostly the money machine and the investment firms, investment houses, and hedge funds that are connected to the money machine. We're talking about the money printers. Right, and I've said this before, you could have 99% of the population homeless, and technically the markets could still go up because of the way the markets are bought and sold. And there's no restrictions in the money machine going in and buying securities, as we've proven here on this channel, time and time again. We've been telling you this for years. So Paul Tudor Jones is out there saying inflation could be worse than feared. It definitely is. This shipping backup and this cargo backup and this supply chain issue that we're seeing here is largely manufactured at the hands of the money printers and the decision makers. A lot of it's because of all the regulations, rules, and restrictions. And this thing could be cleared up next week if they would just step out of the way, if you know what I'm saying. Now, speaking of the backlog, the supply chains, the cargo ships backing up with 500,000 containers waiting out at sea. Here's an update on this situation, just came out today. New executive order aims to alleviate congestion at California's ports. All right, this was out of CNN Business, by the way. So let's see, the ones that messed things up to begin with, that shut everything down, let's see what they're coming up with to try to fix their own problem. Executive order put out recently by Newsom tackling the shortage of truck drivers. We just talked about that in our last episode. About 80,000 truck drivers are needed. And container storage needed to move critical cargo out of the ports. The executive order directs state agencies to find state, federal, and private land for short-term container storage while identifying freight routes for trucks so the state can temporarily exempt the weight limits on the road. Right, so it's a temporary exemption of the weight limits. Also, this order moves to address the educational programs and training for port workers and others in the supply chain. That's going to take a long time to really make a difference, the training for port workers. The order also directs California Labor and Workforce Development Agency to use existing resources to identify potential high-road training partnerships to increase education, career technical education, job training, and workforce development, all things that are going to take a long time to develop to really make a difference. There's already videos out there of these containers and many times being parked on city streets in front of people's houses, in some cases blocking people's homes. Take a look at this here out of CBS Local Los Angeles. Shipping containers that spent weeks aboard ships stuck at ports now being dumped in nearby neighborhoods. Take a look at some of this video.
The trucks are trying to unload shipping containers at UTCI Trucking Company, which has a holding lot at the corner near East Anaheim Street. Area warehouses are full, so there's nowhere else to take them. The lot is now so overcrowded, they're stacking containers on top of each other. Today, while one of the trucks was turning onto McFarland, its cargo container tipped over, crushing a parked car. Fortunately, nobody was hurt.
So yes, a lot of this is bad policymaking decisions, bad lawmaking. And apparently the people that cause all this problem are going to come in and save us all. They're going to fix everything. So I guess nobody needs to prepare. Right, you know the truth, people. Stay well, keep stacking, stay safe. Bye for now. Big love to everyone listening. Peace.